Hello and welcome. Today we're going to discuss a real-world application that we're going to design, code, and implement on this channel. Let's talk about the application. As we can see on the screen, this is the application design diagram. And what we are doing here is we are coding for creating a food application or a food order system. So let's go over different components and in this architecture diagram and look at the workflow of what we're going to implement and how we're going to implement it. I'm going to try and go into as much details as possible of some of the schemas that we're going to pass through different components of this microservice so that we can have as much information as relevant information as needed. So as we see, there's a food order system and we have three inputs or three endpoints for that food order system. In the future, we're going to add more endpoints, and I'm going to go over one of those use cases that would be beneficial once we start writing the front end for the whole process. But right now, we are going to stick to the back end here. So the first workflow we can talk about is placing the order. It's an authenticated workflow. As we can see, we are passing in the JWT token, it's the ID token, and we're going to say, okay, we're going to pass in all the relevant information for the order that we want to order on the system. So we have all the details for the order, and the food order system will have the ID token. From that, it will possibly be getting some relevant information for the end user, which could be an email address for the user, or the user ID in the authentication system for the user. Let's go over the authentication system, and then we can go into the workflow detail here. The authentication system is going to be where the users are going to be able to create an account for themselves, and they are going to be able to authenticate and get tokens for that their users so that they could be used on the application workflows eventually. And as a future requirement, we are going to try and add as many social sign-ins as possible for that authentication system, so that we don't need users to create an account with our app, but they could bring in their other other accounts, social accounts that they already have. Like as an example, they have a Facebook account that they can use to try and authenticate with our application. They don't necessarily need to create a new account with us and remember a password, right? That is a very good bonus point. And the authentication system needs to scale for future requirements as well. As we start building the application and start building front end and other workflows for the application and the other use cases, we don't necessarily want to share some of the PII that we are going to share or store in this case. So in this case, we are going to have the user ID and email address and some other information about the user. And we don't want to share that across all components. In this food order system component, we only need to maintain two details of the authenticated user. One of them would be the email address. The other would be for processing purposes. The other would be having the ID of the user. That would be very relevant information. Other than that, we don't necessarily want more information. There could be other systems in the future where we don't want some of that information at all. So we need some other details for that use. So we'll try and use the key, the application or the application key that the authentication system allows you to use to start working towards getting only the relevant information for that user. So that is another requirement we have for the authentication system. So now we have the food order system where the order is placed and the user is authenticated, and we have the ID details for that user. And we take the details for that user and we get the order details, and we kind of put them together. So this is the user ID, or this is the email address for the user, and these are all the details that the user asked for. These are all order details for that user, and this is the timestamp for that order. We're going to put it into a messaging queue, and once that message is placed into a messaging queue, we're going to pass in a 201 created response for that request. At that point, the order is kind of created from the end user's perspective. So we had the retention on the queue would be of importance as well, and we can go into those details as we get into the implementation part of the order system. So now we have the queue. The queue is going to be the one that triggers the order processor or the order processing part of the whole microservice architecture here. So we have the details of the order ID, we have the details for email, and the exact order details. So the order processor is going to pick up that message and start processing that order. So what it does is, first thing it is, I'm going to add styling and create a PDF for that order, and it's going to add all the order details in there. and it's gonna take that PDF and it's gonna pass in and store it into a data store. The data store could be a cloud store, it could be local file system as well, but we'll get into those details later. But possible, it's more likely to be a cloud store. And at that point, it's gonna pick up that order details, and it's gonna the order details that were in the queue. It's gonna append the location of that file that it stored, the PDF that it created and it stored, and it's gonna pick that up and put it into a database. And it's gonna have another field added to it. It should be, okay, the order is now created. So that would be appended into the database as well. And it's gonna take two pieces of information from that order. One is gonna be the email address of the order and the order ID that we assign upon creation. And it's gonna pass it to the notification server. It's gonna pass into another queue where it is gonna have the notification, and it's gonna add the location of the S3 file, location of the file that it is going to store as well. So it's most likely going to be adding that in there as to the queue. So it is going to have 3 pieces of information that it passes to the queue. And those pieces of information are going to be, from that point on, the queue is the second queue is going to trigger the notification system with that piece of information. So the notification system at that point is going to take the location of the file from the data store, and it's going to pick up that file. It's going to take the information of the order or the order ID. It's going to take the information of the end user who's the one who has placed the order ID, which we initially got from the authentication system. And it's going to pass that and send that as an email with the PDF as a body of the message. And it's going to send it as an email to the end user saying, okay, your order is now created. This is the status of the order, which is now, okay, it's been created just now. Now, this is going to be the order creation workflow that happens across all these systems. And it almost touches all different components of the whole system, right? Now the order is being placed and it is going to be showing up on a POS system somewhere, and then person somewhere over there is going to click a button that says, okay, order is going to be now in progress. This is this workflow over here where we have the order in progress authenticated workflow that has been passed into the to the sister food order system. So the food order system is going to pick up that message, and it's going to have a couple of details there. One of them could be the order ID and some other relevant information. And that order ID is based on that. The database is going to be updated, where when we created the order, it's an order is created. That's some other field or some flag that is created to the order. So now it is going to say it's in progress because the POS system said it's in progress. So it's being picked up now. So that is another workflow that is being created, and it's going to give a 200 OK message saying, okay, it's updated in the database and the order is created now. So that is another part of this workflow. So at some point, we will eventually add other pieces of workflow or other endpoints microservice. One of them I can think of is getting a get call, so that when the user checks the app and says, okay, what is the status of my order? After this workflow, the order status should say it's in progress. So the user will see the order details from the database, where it says the order ID, where it says all of these details of the order, when it was placed, and it's going to say it is in progress now, because that's a new piece of information that the end user would want based on what is the current status of their order. Now the order is being picked up. That part of the transaction is done. The system needs to be updated with the status of the order. So somebody clicks on the POS saying, oh, the order is picked up, now it's completed. So that is this workflow where it says order is fulfilled, and it's a JWT or an ID token that is being passed in. It's another authenticated workflow, and it says order fulfilled. At that point, we have the ID of the order and some other piece of information. We'll look into that part. And it says, okay, this is the ID of the order, goes to the database, and it just updates the status of the order saying the order completed. The other thing that needs to happen is we have the data store, we have a PDF sitting around, which we don't necessarily need anymore because the part is done and the whole transaction is completed for that order, and we have a confirmation from the end user's perspective that it's completed now, right? So we can safely remove that PDF and don't necessarily need to reprocess that PDF. At that point, we'll have to, so we have the details of the PDF location, and we can take it from the database, and we can go and expire or delete that object, the PDF from the data store, so that we don't necessarily incur more costs in the future for storing that storing unnecessary piece of information. So this is some of the basic workflow that we're going to try and implement. And in the future videos, we'll go over how we are going to implement it. We're going to use AWS services for implementing it. And we will go over how we're going to implement it, which services we're going to use, and what are the different technologies and terminologies that we'll have to look into to try and implement those individual workflows. And once we get that sorted out, we'll have other couple of videos where we start doing start documenting what are the different things that we need to implement to actually make this service a reality. So we'll start going over some of those, and please look out for more videos like these. Thank you.